Hey everyone, happy NFL opening week to all of you, and a happy 12 years, a dozen years to myself, as I have now been making these videos on YouTube for 12 years. It started in 2009. I was 21 years old in college, and it was the TO year, the Monday night game against the New England Patriots. I'm sure a lot of you remember watching that game and probably being super upset afterwards. But I had all these thoughts just going on in my head, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to start a vlog, a video blog. Don't even really know if that's what they're called anymore. A lot of things have changed over the years. The name of video blogs, perhaps, but also my perspective on football, on game strategy, on roster building, on coach speak, on momentum. Don't even get me started if you've experienced one of my momentum rants. But things like analytics have become super prevalent in the sports world, and football is really no exception. And I have paid attention to that. So thank you for growing with me over the years. The number one thing that maybe has happened is, look at this. I'm so gray. My hair has lost its color. But I think a lot of that maybe stems from this crazy 2020 that not just I have experienced, that we all have experienced, and that we continue to experience. Because for the first time since 2005, I will have to watch a Bills home game from somewhere other than the stadium. Bills Stadium was Rich Stadium, then the Ralph, then New Airfield, and now officially Bills Stadium. Temporarily, probably, but we'll go with it for now. Anyway, first time since 2005, I won't be there for a home game, and I know that I'm not alone in that regard, that some people have had season tickets since like the 80s or the 70s, maybe even since the birth of the Buffalo Bills in the 60s. So, I don't expect any sympathy there. I'm just letting you know this will be the first time I've missed a home game in 15 years, and I'm pretty upset about it. Hopefully, we'll get some clarity on the situation in the coming weeks, because right now it's only for the first two games, the home opener this weekend against the Jets, which we'll obviously talk about in a couple of minutes, and then week 3 at home against the Rams. So hopefully by the time the Super Bowl champion Chiefs come to town on Thursday Night Football, we can get some butts in the seats, maybe myself included, maybe you. But let's start with the 2020 Buffalo Bills as presently constructed, the 53-man roster. There were some surprise cuts. I guess I don't want to say what's more surprising than the other. Patrick Demarco, I think, getting released was a bit of a surprise to me, because he goes on IR before the 53-man, and then he's waived with an injury settlement this week. So he is a free agent. I thought that the Bills maybe just valued his prowess on special teams, more so than a fullback. His veteran leadership. I thought that Beane and McDermott really respected the type of person he was, both in and outside of the locker room, and that he would ride out the last year of his contract with the Bills. But he is released, and Reggie Gilliam sort of takes his spot, and I'm happy for Reggie Gilliam. He makes the transition from fullback to tight end, and now he's going to play that H-back type of role. And really, every time I hear H-back, I think of Chris Cooley for the Washington football team. That's just the number one person that comes to mind, and I wouldn't hate if Reggie Gilliam ended up in that type of role. I think he's a little bit buried on the depth chart right now, behind Dawson Knox, behind Tyler Kroft, behind Lee Smith, who's another one of those players like DeMarco that Beane and McDermott respect as a person, value that veteran voice in the locker room, and I think a lot of fans thought that maybe he would get released, but rather it's DeMarco in this instance, and he is usurped. Is that the word? Wally pipped. Just overtaken by Reggie Gilliam. And good for Reggie Gilliam. I respect this move from the Bills' perspective as well, because a fullback is really kind of like a dead position in the NFL. So try something different. Try something with a more athletic person. Reggie Gilliam can maybe contribute on special teams as well. The other cuts that I think some people saw coming, I want to obviously talk about receiver. Duke Williams gets released. He's re-signed to the practice squad. Robert Foster is released. He was signed by Green Bay to their practice squad. So I think a lot of fans were optimistic about Foster after his rookie season, where he had over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns, and really seemed to be developing something with Josh Allen towards the end of Josh's rookie year as well. But the Bills have just improved that position so much with Beasley, with Brown, with the addition of Diggs. They drafted Gabriel Davis, Isaiah Hodgins, who's on IR. But these guys just, and McKenzie, Isaiah McKenzie's there as well. These guys just really sort of demand roster spots at this point. So it was just too crowded of a room for Robert Foster. And, I really wish him well. I'll root for him in Green Bay. Hopefully, I think in Green Bay he becomes one of their better receivers, to be honest with you, despite the fact that he's on the practice squad. I think that there's room for him to play and grow there with Aaron Rodgers, potentially with Jordan Love. We knew, I had talked about in my previous video about how crowded of a room the receiver room was. So we knew that, some guys were going to be on the outs. And unfortunately, it's fan favorites like Robert Foster and Duke Williams. Duke Williams obviously still here, like I said, on the practice squad. But think about the improvements that have been made. Your 11 personnel is Diggs, and Diggs, Brown, Beasley, and then Singletary or the rookie Zach Moss. Like, that's exciting. And then the tight end Knox, who, if he can just catch the easy ones instead of only the more difficult ones, he seems to make ridiculous catches all the time, but struggled with some easy ones. So if he can fix the drops, arrow up for this offense. Arrow up for this offense regardless, because Stephon Diggs is involved. And it was arrow up last year, and now they add an elite, I'm going to call him an elite receiver, despite the fact that he's never been to a Pro Bowl or never been, named an All-Pro. He's an elite player. Andre Roberts is still there. If you didn't see that coming, you played yourself, DJ Khaled. Congratulations, you played yourself. The Bills love Andre Roberts in the return game. They really value special teams players like that. And he obviously has a bigger role than Demarco did. And that's why he is still here. But like that re-signing thing was the most obvious thing ever. Where are we? So I'm looking through the Bills releases here. There's some tough cuts in here, like Vincent Taylor, who played for them last year, Andre Smith, who they traded for just a week ago, and then they re-signed him to the practice squad. Voshan Joseph, who they drafted last year, gone. Corey Thompson played an integral role on special teams for them, gone. Cam Lewis was nice in camp out of UB, gone. Dane Jackson, these guys are on the practice. That guy's on the practice squad. Lewis and Jackson, drafted in the 7th round to the practice squad. The Bills, I've talked about this, a lot the past couple of years. The Bills are difficult to make. They are a hard team to make because they are so deep, and that is why you should continue to be optimistic about them moving forward. They are a good team. They have some weaknesses, some areas where they can maybe get better. Tight end, maybe pass rush a little bit here or there. A lot of room to grow at quarterback still, even though we can be as optimistic as we want about Josh Allen. But this is like it. Like, you have to step up right now with what you've been given. And it starts this week. We'll jump right in to the New York Jets. I don't love the New York Jets as a football team. Obviously, I'm not a fan of them, so I don't like them in that regard. But I don't like their team as presently constructed. Darnold is, in Allen, you can go back and forth on that argument, but I don't think you can argue that Josh Allen doesn't have the better team around him. What have the Jets done on offense? Here we go, I'm pulling up their depth chart. On offense, they rebuilt the right side of their line. They rebuilt, starting in the center, honestly. They brought Connor McGovern in from Denver, and I think that he will be an improvement for them. I just don't love the right side of their line. Greg Van Roten, not a fan, really. George Fant from Seattle, whatever. Russell Wilson was running for his life all the time, and that might have been more on Russell Wilson than anybody else. But I'm just not buying into the right side of that line. Alex Lewis is back at left guard. I love Mekhi Becton. I love their first-round pick, Mekhi Becton. I think he is a stud at left tackle and will be there for years to come. But I think the Jets may have overpaid for average players on the offensive line just to get different bodies in there, and I understand that thought process. It worked for the Bills, sort of, with Anseki and maybe Darrell Williams and John Feliciano, who's going to miss this game, obviously. He's on IR. Might miss the first 3 games. It looks like you only have to miss 3 weeks on the IR right now. So hopefully he's back for week 4. But I think the Bills just have, Josh Allen, that's the point I'm trying to make, has the advantage on offensive line, returning all these guys who have played together before. The whole entire Morse, Spain, Dawkins, and then, Ford and then second year there, maybe they throw in Darrell Williams. But that continuity is just a word that gets thrown around a lot, and I don't necessarily love it. But I think in this 2020 COVID offseason, that's going to be big for him. The weapons that Sam Darnold has, super unimpressive. Jamison Crowder, Rashad Perriman, Chris Hogan. Perriman might have just been a fluke, I think, last year with Jameis Winston throwing every single play. He put together a nice, second half of the season, so credit to him for that. I don't buy into the fact that it is sustainable for him. I know he's a former first-round pick, but they're just the extended sample size, I'm not buying into it. Crowder I do like as a player. Hogan is, but like who? I like Denzel Mims, who they drafted, but these weapons against Stephon Diggs, against Cole Beasley and John Brown. They can't hold a candle to them. LeVeon Bell is probably better at running back than right now. We don't know anything about Zach Moss than Devin Singletary is, but here is LeVeon Bell. Let me explain a couple LeVeon Bell stats to you, and I have them right here, so please bear with me. LeVeon Bell last year had his lowest yards per carry of his career. This is after missing a season. Fewest yards per carry of his career, fewest yards per game of his career, fewest attempts per game of his career. I know they were trailing a lot last year, and Darnold missed 3 or 4 games there in the beginning of the season with mono. But fewest receiving yards since 2015 when he only played 6 games. Other than that, it's his second fewest receiving yards of his career. Only 1 receiving touchdown that came in week 1 against the Bills. He went 15 weeks without scoring through the air, and I guess he really only had, 7 receiving touchdowns in his career. That actually surprises me. But anyway, 789 rushing yards. He almost got to that in 2015 in 6 games. I mean, he was 200 yards short of that, but 9-game difference. So, Adam Gase, don't love him as a head coach. I think he's a good football mind, but I don't think he's a people person, and you need to be both. I don't think he understands how to talk to people, and that's why he doesn't really like LeVeon Bell. He hasn't really liked any of his running backs dating back to Miami. Jay Ajayi gone, Kenyon Drake was gone, and I know that some of these happened at different times, but there was just weird guys in the doghouse with Adam Gase, and he should have known in his press conference that he just seems like a weird guy who knows football, and that's fine, but maybe not for a head coach. Maybe fine for an offensive coordinator, but not for a head coach. Anyway, I'm flipping back to the depth chart of the Jets because I want to hit on their defense really quick. They lose Jamal Adams. They trade him to Seattle. C.J. Mosley opts out, who I know that they were without last year for most of the year anyway. Patrick Onwuasor is on IR. He's going to miss at least this game against the Bills. Avery Williamson is back. That's nice for them. They have a couple nice players on the defensive line. Jordan Jenkins is a nice player, led them in sacks last year. Quinnen Williams I really liked coming out. But I think having Bradley McDougald instead of Jamal Adams is a downgrade at safety. Marcus May is a nice player, but your corners are Bless Austin, who has never started more than 6 or 7 games, and Pierre Desir, who had a nice year with Indy last year, but ultimately really isn't that good of a player. He's bounced around. This is his 4th team in 7 seasons. So I think I love this matchup for the Bills. The Bills are a touchdown favorite heading into this Sunday at home against the Jets. The Bills were 10-6 last year. The Jets, despite going what did they go over last year? I think they went 6-2 over the last 8 games. Double checking. Yeah, they went 6-2 over the last 8 games, but they beat the Giants, the Redskins, the Raiders, the Dolphins, Duck Hodges, or Mason Rudolph, whoever even started that game, and then Matt Barkley. So I really like the Bills to beat the Jets this week. Let's say 24-13. I think they cover. 24-13 Bills. I love the way the Bills are bringing guys back. They're bringing basically everybody back. They're extending Trey White. Very happy to see that. Really no other comment other than that. Great. Trey White is here for the next 6 years. Perfect. Great deal for Brandon Beane, especially with the contract Jalen Ramsey gets on Wednesday. 5 for 105. That is insane. Anyway, guys, hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle and YouTube username are the same. You can hit me up on there. Always talking Bills. Always talking pretty much all sports. Thank you for coming this far into the video, and as always, above all else, go Bills.